Okay, a white guy, a black guy, and a Jewish guy go into a bar. And the bartender says, "Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd go see a movie at our local Regal Cinema Theater, and then we talk about it in the cold in Matt's car right after the movie. I am Todd Domer."
And I'm Matt Malloy, and I really was going to struggle to tie in your lead into this particular movie. But no, I think it was just a joke.
Yes.
A good joke.
Nice.
Well, so today on this episode, we are going to be giving our reactions to the movie called The Invisible Man.
Dun, dun, dun.
There was a book by H.G. Wells, I believe, written a long time ago about the Invisible Man. This has nothing to do with that, except for
Not at all.
they both feature invisible men. So what is this particular story about? Well, this is a story of a woman who's in a relationship with a man, and he's abusive. And so the opening shot is her trying to and successfully escaping from him physically, her running, him chasing her, and then she makes her get away. And so she is pretty fearful. She's spending some time kind of in hiding, trying to figure out her next moves, trying to settle herself mentally. And then she gets the news that the guy has killed himself. He's dead. And so she starts to feel some freedom and starts to kind of open things up in her life again. But as that happens, she starts having these senses that someone is there, someone is doing things to her, someone is that she can't see. An invisible person is stalking her and doing things in her life that screw her over. And obviously no one believes her. So without going too much further in how the plot unfolds, I don't think any of that is kind of spoilers. There is this sort of tension between, is she really crazy? Is there really someone invisible? And I don't think it's a stretch or a spoiler to say there really is someone invisible.
Yeah, I feel like they make it pretty clear
Yeah.
in the trailers that
Right.
there definitely is someone.
So
This isn't The Turning.
it's not The Turning. So and the rest of the movie is kind of following her down this kind of descent into madness where no one believes her, and figuring out what's really going on. By the end of the movie, pretty much everything that has gone down, and there's some things that are predictable, and there are some things that are not.
Twisty-turny?
Twisty-turny, a little bit. So, what did you think, Todd?
Well, I'm going to give a little bit of credit where credit's due. I really didn't want to see this movie. I was very... none of the trailers really grabbed me. It's weird because I thought to myself, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, okay, that's an interesting take on the Invisible Man, what's going on. And then it's I'm sure there's an aspect of woman empowerment that is definitely part of this movie, having seen it. But for some reason, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, aren't we ready for an invisible woman? For some reason, that's been a very strong thought in my mind. Now, and I also in general, I was like, okay, thrillery. I just wasn't feeling it. None of the trailers really made me feel strongly about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this was not a bad movie. It's very thrillery. I think Elisabeth Moss does a good job because a lot of this movie is her reacting to things, and I think that's a dangerous game you play with acting, where it's this movie is 90% of it is her reacting to things that are there or things are not there, but it's all about her reaction.
Yeah.
So there were scenes that I was like, that was okay. And then there were scenes where I was like, she kind of crushed that. Like,
Yeah.
so props to her. The story's not bad. You're engaged the whole time. You know, I don't think it's like the best thriller I've ever seen, but there's some nice twisty turns to keep you engaged. I mean, there was no point where I was bored, but there were definitely points where I was like, I definitely saw that coming. So, plenty of good things to say about this movie, and I wouldn't say there's really not much to, like, totally bad to say, just kind of like predictable, kind of what to say. So, I'm definitely landing on the fact that I liked it, and it was not a waste of my time. I think if you are into thrillers, or if you're like, ooh, an Invisible Person movie, that's right up my alley, then go see it. Sure. I think it checks a lot of boxes, and it is not a waste of money. Not that we paid that much for it. So, yeah, it's not even really bad. I wasn't a fan of the guy who played the Invisible Man. He just was,
But you don't see much of him in this movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, really, it's really not in it at all. But I don't know, it's weird.
Well, he certainly doesn't play a sympathetic character.
No, not at all. Yeah, You're not at all supposed to feel for him, and it's not a spoiler, but something that really bothered me is that when she leaves, so she leaves, he chases, she leaves, she gets away, her sister comes, picks her up, and this is all within the first 5 minutes of the movie, so that's not a spoiler. We have a hard cut to 2 weeks later, and 2 weeks later, she's with this you find out he's a cop and his daughter are living in this house, and she's living with him. She's been living in for 2 weeks and stuff like that. And they never explain her relationship to these people, how she knew them, how she got attacked. It just was weird. Like, I was like, who is this person? How do you know them? You guys are awfully familiar with each other. And I could be wrong, but I don't remember any explanation on who they are.
I think there was a slight illusion that the sister knew the guy, perhaps
maybe
he was a friend of both of theirs.
They just were really friendly with each other by the time, maybe that built up over 2 weeks, or maybe this was a lifelong friend. You just honestly don't know. And so I found myself questioning that the entire time. I was like, who is this person?
Yeah.
And, but again, that's not a huge distractor. It was just a little side note for me that distracted me a little bit. So, all right, end rant.
End rant. Rant is over. All right. So I really like this movie. I echo a lot of the good things that you said, Todd, and I thought it was well done. It was a quality thriller movie with your twisty turnies. So yes, lots of good. I would say see it. I would say even if you're not in the loving thriller or loving invisible people demographic, you could probably still see it and enjoy yourself.
There's going to be so much background noise to this podcast because this is the first time we've ever experienced this. People keep walking by the car and talking loudly.
It's great. It's great for our podcast. It's real, guys. This is real. We're really recording in a parking lot. So the one thing that I thought was a little bit distracting and maybe didn't like was fighting invisible people seemed to go really, really poorly.
Yeah.
There was many people in this movie who fought an invisible person.
Yeah.
And virtually all of them could not figure out how they were being touched in a way that they could really make contact with the invisible person. Some of them were being picked up by an invisible person, being held by the person's arm, and couldn't figure out how to make contact with the person who was picking them up, who was invisible. But minor point, and only slight marks off for that.
There were times where it was the Invisible Man was kind of showing some incredible feats of strength. There's a point where he has Elisabeth Moss with one hand on her throat, and he is lifting her, just deadlifting her, and she's in the air.
Yeah.
Not for just a second. It's this goes on for a minute or two, and she's just in the air, and I was like, Does the invisibility give you super strength too, or are you just
Yes.
a blown superhero? Like you missed your calling. Stop terrorizing this woman and go save people.
Right.
So,
Well, anyway, I really liked this movie. I thought it was good. And you should see it.
nice.
Yeah.
All right, how many? Let's do. How many bloody knives would you give this movie?
There are a few bloody knives in this movie.
Yeah.
For sure. So, on a scale of 1 to 5 bloody knives, where 5 bloody knives would be the best, I'm going to give this...
In fairness, you can say zero. It's not just 1 to 5. It's 0 to 5. If you hated the movie, right? You could just say 0.
You could say 0.
Yeah.
0 to me, though. That's like you fell asleep and didn't even see the movie. It was terrible, and you were so bored that you fell asleep and didn't watch the movie. I feel like I'd never give a 0. Probably never give a 5 either.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this movie, I'm going to go and give this 4 out of 5 bloody knives.
It's a fair amount of bloody knives.
I thought it was a good film. Some minor things off, or it could have gone even higher. But like you said, I was engaged the whole way, and I liked the story and the acting, and yeah. So that's where I'm landed.
Nice.
What say you?
I think I'm gonna land somewhere around 3.4. I think is where I'm at.
Okay.
Definitely, like blew away expectations because my expectations were extremely low. Like I think even when you were like, "Let's see this movie," my response was in text form.
Yeah.
And then okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have some gripes with it, but they're pretty minor. Yeah, that's just where I'm at. I mean, maybe as I think about it more, that rating could rise, but that's just where I'm at right now.
Or it could fall.
I guess it could fall. Yeah. So you never know. My dad's gonna be happy that we rated this movie high because he was questioning whether or not he wanted to see it or not. And
Dan Domer, see this movie.
yeah.
Did he ever see Treasure Island, by the way? He was really interested in that.
Treasure Island.
Sorry. I said the wrong name. Fantasy Island.
Oh, Fantasy Island. I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
Only because I don't think he has anyone to go with him. My
Gotcha.
mom wouldn't see that movie.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll see this movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he was like, "Oh, I love that Elisabeth Moss."
Oh,
I
well.
was like, "Okay,
She's in it a lot.
yeah, 3.4. You should go see it."
Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where where we reviewed The Invisible Man, and we gave it an average rating of 3.7, which is pretty high.
Would have been higher if it was The Invisible Woman.
True. Well, maybe the sequel. Maybe that'll be the sequel, The Invisible Woman. Anyway, thanks for listening to our podcast. We like people to listen, so we're not just talking to ourselves.
But we still would talk to ourselves even if no one was listening.
We would.
All right. Da 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 da.